My next guest is a fiber artist whose work is currently showing in St. Louis art galleries. Please welcome Jennifer Gerard Goley. Welcome, Jennifer. So nice to have you here at STL Live. Thanks. So you are a fiber artist.
Yes.
And so tell us what that means to be a fiber artist.
Well, I work with a variety of fibers. I create what I call fiber paintings. I try and make something that resembles paint, looks painterly, but using a wide range of fibers.
So did you start out using traditional mediums like paint as an artist?
Yes, I am formally trained as a painter. I went to WashU, graduated from art school there in 1984, and painting was what I did in the beginning. And then I always was interested in traditional rug hooking, and I made that transition about 20 years ago when I was raising children, and I needed something that was a little more transportable.
Yeah.
It has grown into something that's not quite as transportable because
In what way?
Well, I use so many different kinds of fibers. When I sit and work, I have piles of wool and silk and velvet just sort of heaped around me.
Do you plan, when you plan your creation, your art, are you thinking about what fibers you're going to use at the beginning, or does that evolve as the work is created?
Well, that's a good question, because sometimes yes and sometimes no. Sometimes my inspiration comes from some really wonderful material I find and great color, and I'll say that I have to work with that.
So where do you find your fibers?
Well, all over, but predominantly I buy most of my wool from a woman who is a well-known rug hooker in St. Louis, Nola Heidbreder. She does a lot of dyeing and creating, and she comes up with just magic in a dye pot. And it's something that I don't do myself. A lot of rug hookers do dye their own wool. I don't have a place for that. You need a whole separate kitchen, really, to do that. So she's been a wonderful resource for me, and she was also my teacher. So she's the one who taught me initially.
So, in looking at your pieces that you brought with you, it looks like it's primarily wool here. Am I right? Or are there different fibers
No,
here?
there's a lot of different fibers in there. In this bigger piece, there are over 50 different fibers, yes. But predominantly wool, you're right about that, and wool yarn. But I use velvet, and I use silk, and I use ribbon, and I use pretty much anything that I can pull through a linen backing. I brought a piece that's in, well, it's finished, but it just hasn't been framed yet, and you can see what the backing looks like. And if I can pull it up through one of these little holes.
And these are tiny little
They're tiny.
holes. So you use a needle?
No, I use a traditional rug hook.
Okay.
But if I can pull something up through one of those holes, it can be in one of my pieces. And I've used all kinds of things, including jute and wire. And
yeah, I was thinking wire would definitely work. And is the idea behind the pieces something that you want to just look at or touch? I mean, because it looks, I feel like I want to touch these.
They're very tactile, and they're totally fine to touch. And in traditional rug hooking, they're rugs. They go on the floor, and they're for, utility. Now, these really aren't, because the fibers that I use are more delicate, and they really would not stand up to that. But they have no glass on the front of them for a reason, because the texture is something that appeals to me, and that's something I try to work with.
Yeah. So Jen, how long does it take? I don't have a concept of the amount of time and work involved in a little piece like this. Like, how is it? Hours or days or weeks?
Yes.
All of this.
Yes. It really depends. They are labor intensive. When I create a piece, I sometimes work on a design first, sometimes I just start. And sometimes I put it all in, and sometimes I take it back out.
Really?
But the larger piece probably took me about 40 to 50 hours, maybe, to do. And a smaller piece like this, probably 15 to 20 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it, what I see here is a landscape.
Yes.
Okay. Is that what your vision is?
That's what I'm
or?
drawn to.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would say that most of the work that I do is inspired by landscape.
By nature.
And even if it is somewhat in abstract, which they're abstract, they still, to me, they're landscapes. To me, there's
Yeah.
a sky and a horizon. and,
Absolutely.
yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, John, and come back and talk more about your art and your tips for aspiring artists. Stay with us at STL Live. We'll have more with Jennifer Gerard Goley after this break.